Hello and welcome to Diecast Diaries. I'm Dan, I hope you're all well. And a few weeks ago I did a video featuring a couple of Conrad fire trucks, and at the end of that I mentioned that I currently had on the way from eBay another model fire engine that would be featuring in a video very soon, and it was of course this. It's the Corgi Major American LaFrance aerial rescue truck, a suitably impressive name for what must go down, I think, as one of the best toys that Corgi ever did. I think it's a real good combination of model and toy, really, and I think it shows just how good old toys used to be. I think it's got the right sort of combination of, it's got enough detail and accuracy to pass just about as an actual model to put on display, but yet it's got enough playability and just about probably enough robustness to act obviously what it was originally meant as, which is a toy. Interesting, although it's clearly a fire truck, that it makes no mention of the word fire in its name. Aerial rescue truck being what Corgi referred to it as. So this is a model that had a reasonably long production life. It was introduced in 1968 and would stay in production until 1980, although there would be some slight modifications to the casting before it was deleted, which I'll come to lately. And it must have been, probably understandably, a pretty popular model. According to my great book of Corgi, in that time, in its 12-year production run, it sold just over 700,000, which is pretty impressive because in that book it also lists what it originally would have cost. Now the price was slightly unusually listed as 37 and 6. It seemed an odd way of kind of writing the old style sort of prices, but doing some kind of working out using like a currency converter from like old money to current money, I was trying to work out what this would have been in, what it would have cost today. It was quite interesting. Surely this, would have been sort of a pretty expensive model. And I think it came out as about sort of 26, 27 pounds. So certainly not a cheap model. Now I don't know if I may have made some mistake with, as I say, may have made some mistake with the sort of calculations from the old money, but yeah, certainly not a pocket money model. Certainly sort of a flagship model for the Corgi range. So actually described in the Corgi catalogue when it was first introduced as a wonderful working model of the most elaborate firefighting vehicle in the world. And to be fair, Corgi probably weren't far off the mark with that. First of all, it has got some excellent working features. Obviously, we'll get to those shortly. But to the likes of us over here in the UK, the fact that this was something that fire departments in the US use, and this isn't a one-off vehicle, it's not one of those sort of special fire engines produced for sort of a specific fire department and there was only one ever built or anything like that. These are a vehicle that have been in use in various different styles, obviously different makes and that over the years, for decades. This particular model, obviously, with it being introduced in 1968, will be one that dates from kind of the mid to late 60s. But modern versions of these are still in use to this day in a lot of the big cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, all the sort of big cities will still have these. Seems incredible that they managed to sort of get these through the sort of narrow city streets. But of course, the big feature of these is that they have the little tiller man at the back. They're often also called tiller tractors. I think there's various different names that these are known as. I always knew them as hook and ladders, was what I was always used to describe them as. I think that is like quite an old term for them. I think the original versions of these would actually have been horse-drawn, still would have had the great big long ladders, but obviously with the horses at the front, and then obviously gradually becoming motorised over the years. So yeah, yes, we do have large sort of turntable ladders in the UK, but kind of nothing on this scale. So I think, as I say, Corgi were pretty accurate in describing it as the most elaborate firefighting vehicle. It must have seemed pretty exotic when it appeared in the catalogue. So what I'll do, I will get this out of the box. I'll have a look at the box and then have a look at the vehicle itself. So just slide it out, just put that to one side for the moment. So typical Corgi Major box, sort of the sort of nice sort of yellow and blue colour. It's got the American LaFrance logo on the front there. That's the company that made the fire engine in real life. On the top, sort of details the working features of it. So you've got Diecast scale model. That's funny actually that they refer to it as a model and not a toy. And I did say it was kind of accurate enough and sort of detailed enough to pass as a model, but it's funny that that's what Corgi actually referred to it as. With remote controlled 3-section telescopic ladder with controlled elevation, detachable tractor unit, rotating turntable, supporting jacks, complete fire crew, and dual headlights. That's quite a lot that they're sort of packing in. I did think it was unusual that they described the ladder as remote controlled. To me, remote controlled is kind of something where you have obviously a separate controller and and a sort of a wire going to the model, and you can kind of move it like that. That's obviously not what Corgi are referring to here, but it is a sort of an interesting working feature they've got to extend the main ladder. On the side, they've just got quite a nice sort of side drawing, profile drawing of the vehicle. 1143 obviously being Corgi's model number for it. And then on the back, we've got the really nice looking artwork, which is obviously what I've used from the backdrop that Corgi used. I did actually find a couple of other different bits of artwork that Corgi had for this. I'm guessing due to the shape of them, they wouldn't have fitted on this box. So I'm guessing it's what would have been actually in the catalogues, maybe on the front cover of the catalogue. You can imagine in the year that this was introduced, Corgi would want to kind of like splash it on the front cover of the catalogue. But yeah, really nice artwork that. Sadly, this one just has the end flap missing. It's not a particularly difficult model to get, as I say, with 700,000 of them being sold, obviously quite a few of them floating about. It's not ridiculously expensive, but it is one of those, because it's a fairly fragile model. A boxed one really is what you kind of need to go for to try and ensure it has all its bits. I don't know why I've not kind of picked one of these up sooner, really. I think one thing that kind of always put me off, and I'll just get the actual vehicle out now, was the fact it has an open top cab. I always found it a little bit odd that American fire engines, even well into the 70s, some of them still had open top cabs. I understand it's a feature of ones from like the sort of 40s, 50s, because ones over here were like that. But yeah, it really does seem to have stayed a feature of American fire trucks for a good few years. And I think I just prefer the look of them with a roof. But more recently, I think I just decided that it was a vehicle I really wanted to add to my collection. As I say, it's a very impressive one. But yeah, it's not a particularly rare one, but because of the various little bits and that it has, it is one that really you do need to get a box for. Now this, I ended up paying £25 for it. As I say, it was off eBay. I don't think I was lucky to get it for £25 or anything like that. I was obviously very pleased. But, you know, a look on sort of sold items will show a number of these kind of having sold in similar condition in the sort of £25 to £30 bracket. You might strike lucky and get one for slightly cheaper than that. Or, as I say, you might end up in a bit of a bidding war with somebody and determine not to let one go and end up paying a little bit over the odds. But yeah, I would say sort of between £25 to maybe £35, you'll be able to pick one of these up kind of pretty easily. So it's mostly die-cast. This is kind of minimal plastic except when it's really necessary. So it's a decent weighty model. And you can see some of the real fantastic detail that Corgi have included on this. So one of the features it mentioned was the jeweled headlights. So you've got obviously the main headlights themselves, the red flashing lights. Of course, this doesn't, with it not having a roof, there's no kind of loud, big sort of red beacon light on the roof or anything like that. So all the sort of emergency lights are either on the front of the tractor unit or on the top of the window frame. Now these ones on top of the window frame are just chrome. These are some of the parts that are kind of more fragile, quite easily broken off. There's kind of nothing to protect those. Also, you've got these sort of really nicely detailed rear view mirrors. Properly glazed front windscreen as well, which is really nice. You've then got a bell on the one side of the bumper, and then the big siren. You can just imagine the sort of wailing noise this would have made as it hurtles through the streets of New York or something like that. The crest on the side, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, it's a generic one. The colour scheme doesn't give any indication that it's a particular fire department. They've just done it in red, which I think is obviously the most suitable colour. And back then, I think a lot of these American fire trucks now seem to be in all kinds of different colours, but I think back then a lot would have been red, and I think it really suits the model. There are some versions of this I've seen with the wheels done in just sort of bare metal, but I think this one with the red wheels looks much better. You then got the sort of chrome plating on the top here and around sort of the running boards, the base of the ladder, and then also on the trailer as well. A little aerial there, which is obviously another kind of weak point. But one of the best features of this has to be the full crew that it gives you. So you get obviously the driver, all the different firemen. You even get the sort of, I don't think he'd be the fire chief as such, because I think he'd travel in his own vehicle. But I think he's probably the sort of battalion chief. I think the Americans in their fire departments tend to divide them up almost on sort of quite military terms. We obviously have lieutenants in the fire department, and as I say, they have battalion chiefs and things like that. So I think that's what he might be with his white helmet. Certainly he's in charge of this crew at least. And then in a really nice touch, you've got the tiller man at the back, but rather than just repeating one of the basic crew figures here, I love the fact that they actually have him holding on to his helmet. You can see he must have been pretty exposed in that position there, steering frantically in the opposite direction to where the tractor unit was going to get it around the sort of narrow streets. Obviously, more modern versions of these, the tiller position is completely enclosed, but you can imagine in the middle of a New York winter with rain or snow sort of slashing down, that must have been a pretty unpleasant place to be. And I must imagine it's quite a tricky job to get the hang of. But yeah, I love that Corgi have done him sort of like holding on, holding on for dear life. You can imagine as this goes top speed. I think it just gives him some real sort of animation, real sort of life, brings the sort of some more life to the figures. But I think that's really cool. So the vehicle does detach. I think in real life, a lot of these are permanently attached to the trailer unit. There's not really anything else that you would want to use this for towing, but Corgi obviously made it sort of detachable, which is nice, and at least it gives us a chance to have a decent look at the tractor unit. So we can have a kind of close look at the crew. All sort of looks like rather snugly in the front there, the three of them, and then the two guys facing rearwards. But I love the sort of like details you've got here on the side. Same on the other side as well. You can see, although this one was bought boxed, there are a few little chips and that on it, but I thought it was good enough. It's actually complete. There's no kind of parts broken off or anything like that, and that was, I think, what I was more concerned about. But yeah, and then underneath you just got Corgi Major Toys, made in Great Britain, American LaFrance, and then, as I say, aerial rescue tractor. So that's the tractor unit. And then the trailer unit itself, have a close look at that. What's a really nice feature, as I say, another thing it mentioned on the box is you've got the fold-out stands for it. These are all metal again as well, so these kind of fold out for when the vehicle's stationary to give the ladder some stability. Same on the other side as well. Just pull it down and see how they would just hold it nice and steady. You've got the extinguisher sort of mounted on the side. The controls or the mounts for the pump, they're all sort of done in metal, and you've got 4 on each side. You can see the other 4 there. Have a closer up look at the tiller man in his little cab with a little windscreen. This is another point that's quite weak, although the frame is metal, because it's quite exposed. And I think particularly if the tiller man goes missing, I think he's one of the figures that's more likely to go missing. You see he's got his own steering wheel there. I have seen these for sale with that bit missing. So yeah, just something else to watch out for. But yeah, the most interesting feature of this one, and as I say, what Corgi kind of quite unusually refer to as remote controlled telescopic ladder, is that you can actually control the ladder separately by using, instead of, I say that, I have been trying to sort of get to the bottom of getting this to work properly without sort of wanting to damage it at all. But right, you kind of turn this button here, or this knob here, and this raises the ladder. And it does raise up to a pretty good height, so it's going to soon sort of disappear out of shot. And then you use the wheel on the other side, this one here, and this is the clever bit, and then it actually extends the ladder. So I'll just extend it a bit. What I'll do, actually, I'll bring it down slightly so it'll be a bit easier to see. Just move the tractor unit out of the way. So you can see, as I'm turning this, the ladder is extending. It's one of those, don't want to sort of go too rough with it, because it's actually like a piece of thread that holds the ladder in place, and kind of that's how it extends. It's quite a clever system. How robust it was putting up with children playing with it, I really don't know. I mean, for every sort of mint box one of these you might find on eBay, there's at least going to be several that are in various sort of states with bits missing and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave it there, so I don't want to sort of like fiddle with it too much. But you get the idea, and because you can see it does extend out sort of quite a way, as it would on the real ones. So these were specifically made for dealing with the sort of skyscrapers that obviously a lot of American cities have, that at the time a lot of our cities didn't have. We'll just wind it back in. It does wind in a bit easier than it winds out, it's fair to say. I'll just bring the ladder back down. There we go, like that. And then what you also get with this is these plastic extension ladders. Now, it does appear that one thing that is missing from mine is one of the ladders. You should get 6 ladders, but it's not a major thing. And this is a model, as it was obviously a pretty well-known and well-produced Corgi one. There's a company called Steve Flowers, and there's probably other companies as well, that do reproduction spare parts for all kinds of different Corgi and Dinky and Matchbox, for that matter, models. And I know for this one, there's quite a number of spare parts that they do. They do the full crew for a start. They do the ladder sections. They'll do things like the windscreen for here, because as I say, that's quite a fragile part. We'll do jeweled headlights for it. They may even do the decals for it as separate, and things like obviously like tyres, wheels, stuff like that. So it is possible to buy one of these and kind of do it up if you really want to. But this one is at least in original condition. But yeah, unfortunately, it does seem that one of the little extension ladders is missing, but it's not. I don't think it detracts from the model, really. So these just slide out like so. And these can be clipped together to make the original ladder kind of even longer, which I think is a really cool feature. Obviously, because they're just loose, that's another thing that could be, quite easily missing from an unboxed one. And you can see it's just got American LaFrance on the side. So as I say, no details as to any sort of specific department. I think that's probably a deliberate thing that Corgi did there. So obviously it would appeal to people all over the world. It's not going to just tie it down to one particular city. It just looks like a kind of generic American fire engine. So as I say, it is a real vehicle. So American LaFrance, it's actually this particular one. It's an American LaFrance 900 series tiller truck. The ladder, just out of interest, it's actually 100 feet it extends to, the real one. So it's pretty good, pretty sort of long reach for a fire engine. These were done in both open and closed style cabs. I'm guessing some fire departments must have had a preference for having these with open cabs. Whether these used to be more widely available before the closed cab ones, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I have seen the American LaFrance ones are quite distinctive. They've got this kind of big sort of curved front end. They did do kind of more normal fire trucks as well. I think they were one of the biggest fire engine companies in the States at one point. They were actually originally established in 1873 and did the first motorised fire engine in 1907. But unfortunately, they're actually no longer in business. Actually went defunct in 2014. I'm assuming they may have just ended up getting bought out by some of the other fire engine companies. But certainly they were in existence for a good long while, sort of well over 100 years, and certainly produced these for a good long while, as well as like various different series of these that over the years have been produced. But yeah, I just think it was a really impressive model that Corgi did. As I say, slightly surprising that I've not ever sort of picked it up earlier. I think I just suddenly decided, I don't know whether I'd seen something on YouTube about these sort of vehicles and decided I really wanted to get the Corgi one. And as I say, I think the only reason why I'd never picked it up before is simply the open top cab kind of put me off. However accurate, that I know that now is, I just prefer the look of ones with the closed cab. But I can't deny that is a fantastic looking model. And yeah, for me, it kind of really sort of does blur the lines, even sort of back in kind of the late 60s into the 70s, between what you could have as a model and what you could have as a toy. So you can see, although there is a lot of metal content on this, these would have been sort of reasonably robust, but there's an awful lot of parts that could go missing. You can imagine sort of if kids are a little bit rough with the ladder mechanism, you can imagine the threads snapping and things like that. The main part of the ladder here is metal. The extending bits are plastic, which is probably to be expected. Obviously, all the extension bits are plastic as well. But as I say, minimal plastic content really, except where it's really needed. So yeah, I just think that is a really, really impressive vehicle for Corgi to do. And I'm no surprise at all that it was such a good seller. So I did mention, as I say, although it was in production until 1980, but there were some changes to it before that time. So I'm not sure exactly when this would have been. My guess would be around about the mid-70s. They decided to give it different wheels, what would have been then more current wheels, Wheels, I have to say, don't look as realistic as these. I think these wheels look really good. The wheels it was given, as I say, for like the rest of its production run were a lot more kind of generic, used by a lot of other different current Corgi models then. The other change they did was to have it in, the chrome bits were all painted white. So all these bits on the trailer, the bottom of the ladder, these bits on the cab, all painted in white. And I have to say again, I think the chrome looks much better. Can't remember if they changed the decals at all, but other than that, it is the same model. Still has all the same working features, but yeah, just really it's the wheels and the colour of these bits that were the main sort of change. So that would have been what it looked like when it ended in 1980. Now, when Corgi sort of stopped producing what we would class as toys, kind of in the sort of early 80s, when they came to start producing things again, sort of in the sort of 90s, in the late 90s, the kind of Corgi now are really only known for doing die-cast models. They don't really tend to do toys so much anymore. It is kind of more the sort of models for collectors. And they have done a reasonable range of American fire trucks. And one of the vehicles they have done as a model is this. So it's obviously the same molds as before. It's fitted with more realistic wheels again, sort of kind of more similar to these, but even more sort of accurate to the real thing. It must still have some working features, but I think any bits that are kind of like slightly oversized to help it work as a toy have been deleted. As I say, it is meant as an actual die-cast model. I did used to have one actually. It was bought a number of years ago from a local antique centre, but it's one I decided to sell. I think I wanted the original version really, so I sold that one. Corgi have done both the sort of closed top and obviously the open top versions of this as die-cast models. Don't think they've done any fire engines for a good few years now. I think these are ones that kind of date from the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. But again, similar to the original one, they're not particularly rare. They're quite easy to find. I suppose now, having picked up an original one, I wouldn't mind getting one of the reproduction ones or sort of model ones, just for comparison's sake. But it is clearly the same mold. Scale-wise, I think it's about 1:55, maybe sort of 1:60ish, something like that. It didn't give a scale in in my Corgi book, but I think it must be about that. But yeah, so just thought that'd be a really impressive model to show. As I say, although it's one that I have kind of wanted it for a while, it's one that I've only picked up kind of recently, but definitely one of my favourite fire engine models I've got now, and one I'm really pleased that I've picked up. So yeah, thought it'd be an interesting one to show that. So got another sort of diecast data file video coming up soon, and possibly another unboxing video in the next sort of few weeks. So in the meantime, I will leave it there for now, but please do like, share, subscribe and comment, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.